"You don't look like someone who forgets a wallet." The words cut through the checkout line like a blade. Every head turned. Every breath paused. And in that frozen moment, a quiet cashier made a choice that would silence an entire store. "Look like someone who forgets a wallet." The store manager's voice was tight, sharp, meant to embarrass. The tall man standing at the front register didn't flinch. He wore a tailored charcoal coat, polished shoes, a watch that caught the bright store lights. He looked like money, looked like control. He looked like someone who never made mistakes. Yet, his hands were empty. His card had been declined twice. His phone battery had died. His wallet, he said calmly, was left in his car. Behind him, a line of customers shifted. A woman sighed. A man checked his watch. The cashier, a young woman named Alina, felt the air grow heavy around her chest because she saw something the others did not. Alina noticed the way the man's jaw tightened, not with anger, but with restraint. She noticed how his eyes did not wander around the store in shame. They stayed steady, calm, almost tired. The manager stepped closer. "You'll have to step aside, sir. Can't hold up the line for this." The man nodded once. Of course, he began to gather the groceries himself. Fresh bread, a carton of milk, a small chocolate cake with blue icing that read "Happy 8th birthday." That cake made Elena's stomach twist. She knew that cake. She had written those letters on it during her break, and suddenly, something inside her shifted. Elena had once seen that same look in another pair of eyes. 3 years ago, she had stood in an airport with a small duffel bag and a uniform that smelled of jet fuel and dust. She had served as a combat medic overseas. She had seen young men whisper prayers into the dark. She had held hands that would never hold another birthday candle again. She had memorized the smell of metal and smoke, the heat of desert wind. The silence, after chaos, her hands still carried faint scars from shrapnel. Thin, white lines across brown skin. Most customers never noticed. She preferred it that way. After coming home, she had traded desert sand for grocery aisles, fluorescent lights instead of sunrise over tents, the beep of scanners instead of distant thunder. But she had not traded away her instincts. She knew the posture of someone holding back more than pride. She knew the quiet of someone who had learned not to ask for help. The man at her register carried that same quiet. The manager folded his arms. "Sir, we can suspend the items for 20 minutes. After that, they go back on the shelves." The customers watched, not cruel, just distant, detached. The way crowds often are when they sense discomfort but do not want to touch it. The man gave a small nod. "That won't be necessary." He placed the cake down carefully, as if it were made of glass. Elena's chest tightened. She thought of the birthdays she had missed overseas. The one where she had watched a video of her younger brother blowing out candles while she sat in a dim tent with a headset pressed to her ear. She remembered smiling into the screen while trying not to cry. Some moments do not come back, and she could not let this one disappear before her mind could argue. Her hands moved. She reached into her apron and pulled out her own worn leather wallet. It was thin. It held just enough for rent, gas, and a little savings she guarded like gold. "I'll cover it." The words left her mouth steady, clear. The line went silent. The manager blinked. "Lena, that's not "I'll cover it," she repeated, already sliding her card into the machine. The man looked at her for the first time with something deeper than calm. His eyes softened, but they did not show embarrassment. They showed recognition. "You don't have to do that," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. The register beeped. Approved. The cake, the milk, the bread. Paid in full. A murmur spread through the line, some surprised, some impressed, some uncomfortable. The manager cleared his throat. "That's very generous. But we do have policies. Policies are important," Elena said gently. "So are people." The words settled in the air. The man took a slow breath. "Thank you. I will return with payment." She nodded once. "I believe you." He gathered the bags, careful, respectful. As he turned to leave, he paused. "What's your name?" "Alina." He gave a small nod. "Alina, I won't forget this." He walked out into the parking lot. the doors closed. Behind him, the store did not immediately return to normal. Conversations restarted, but softer. Customers avoided eye contact with Alina, as if her choice had revealed something inside them. The manager sighed. That was risky. Alina shrugged lightly. Some risks are worth taking, but even she did not know how far this one would go. An hour passed. Then 2 black SUVs rolled quietly into the parking lot. Not loud. Not flashy, just present. The doors opened. 2 men in simple dark suits stepped out. Calm, observant, not aggressive, but alert in a way that felt disciplined. They entered the store without haste. Every head turned again. The tall man from earlier walked in behind them. This time, he carried his wallet in his hand. He approached the register. Alina felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her posture steady. "I believe I owe you something," he said. He placed a crisp envelope on the counter. Inside was the exact amount for the groceries. And more. Alina pushed it back gently. The groceries. Yes, nothing else. He looked at her for a long moment. Around them, customers whispered. The manager stood stiff, unsure. The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. It bore a name that several people in the store recognized. Instantly, a name attached to hospitals, scholarships, community centers. A name often seen in headlines about quiet donations that saved entire programs from closing. He was not just wealthy, he was one of the city's largest private donors. But that was not what filled the room with weight. What filled it was what he said next. 8 years ago, he began softly. A medic pulled my son from a burning vehicle overseas. She stayed with him until the helicopter arrived. She kept him alive long enough for me to hear his voice one last time. Alina felt her breath catch. He continued. I never learned her name. She disappeared back into the dust. But she gave me something no money could buy. Time. The store was so still it felt sacred. He looked at Alina's scarred hands resting lightly on the counter. Today, when you stepped in without asking who I was, you reminded me of her. Alina swallowed. She remembered that day, the smoke, the heat, the weight of a young soldier barely conscious in her arms. She had not known his family. She had only known her duty. The man's voice deepened with quiet strength. Wealth does not measure character. Action does. One of the suited men stepped forward and handed the manager a document. In the coming weeks, the man explained calmly, this store will undergo a full renovation funded through my foundation. Every employee will receive a retention bonus, including Alina. The manager's face drained of color. But understand this, the man added, none of that is because I was embarrassed today. It is because she showed what leadership looks like without a title. He turned back to Alina. There are people who carry medals on their chest. There are people who carry honor in silence. You're the second kind. Tears filled more than one pair of eyes in that store. Alina shook her head softly. I just paid for groceries. No, he replied gently. You paid forward a memory that saved a father's heart. The crowd did not clap. No. They did not cheer. They stood in a silence thick with respect. One by one, customers stepped forward to shake Alina's hand. Some thanked her. Some simply nodded. The manager approached her last. His voice was lower now. I misjudged the situation. I'm sorry. She met his eyes without bitterness. We all do sometimes. By the end of the day, the story had begun to ripple beyond the store. But inside those walls, what mattered most had already happened. A quiet act had exposed loud assumptions. A simple swipe of a card had reminded a room full of strangers that dignity does not announce itself. It stands steady and waits to be recognized. That night, Alina walked home under a sky brushed with fading pink. The air smelled faintly of fresh bread from the bakery next door. She felt tired but not heavy. She thought about the father, about the cake, about the little boy who would blow out candles because a stranger chose courage over comfort. She knew something others were still learning. The strongest people are often the quietest in the room, and sometimes the smallest gesture can shift the weight of an entire crowd. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from and what moment touched you most. Stories like this remind us that respect costs nothing, but it can change everything. Subscribe for more stories that honor the silent heroes walking among us every day.